Darren Naish, everyone, who will be talking about Hunting Monsters, which is his new book, which he will be signing after this talk. So how much is the book, Darren? $7.99. It's $7.99, which is a bargain, so look at that after the talk. You ready, Darren? Okay, let's go.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to discuss some of the great questions of our time. Questions that are no doubt on your mind every day. And these questions are, is Bigfoot real? Does the Loch Ness Monster really exist? Given that these creatures are real, what does this mean as both biology and evolution? Is everything wrong? And of course, the biggest question, the main question, given that these creatures are real, why are they here? What do they want? Well, don't worry, I'm not actually being serious. I think we might justifiably ask, what is it about the persistence... No, let me rephrase that. What does the persistence of interest in these creatures tell us about the way in which some people imagine the world? And that's basically the theme that I discuss in this new book, Hunting Monsters, which you can buy today at $7.99. Please do buy a copy. Hunting Monsters is devoted to mystery animals, cryptids. It is all about cryptozoology, the study of creatures known only from anecdotal evidence, in particular eyewitness testimony. And more specifically, Hunting Monsters is a sceptical science-led review of cryptozoology that seeks to examine the many claims made by cryptozoologists and which basically couch the existence of cryptids within evolutionary or biological frameworks. And a bit of a spoiler alert, but my primary conclusion is that cryptids sadly don't exist. They most likely are extinct cultural archetypes. They are sociological or psychological constructs embedded within our various cultures. And what's happened within recent years is there's been a real push to rationalise them, to turn them into real flesh and blood creatures. Now let's look at a bit of history of cryptozoology. Cryptozoology as a distinct discipline was really invented by this guy, the late great Bernard Hoovermans, who died in 2001. There are various rather unusual illustrations that depicted engaging in inappropriate close physical contact with an assortment of mystery crypto hominids. They were done mostly as book covers by a lady called Aleka Lindbergh, a former companion of Bernard Hoovermans, and also, strangely, of Yul Brynner. Hoovermans was Belgian, but he lived most of his life in France. He was a qualified scientist. He was an expert on mammal teeth, in particular those of aardvarks. But it was clear from his writings that he never really wanted to be a scientist. He wanted to be an entertainer and popular writer. And he explained how, as a young angry zoologist, he took to collecting reports on mystery animals. And he had enough of these reports that by 1955, he was able to produce a book. This was published as Sur les pistes ignorées, and it was really successful. It saw numerous later editions, and it was translated into various different languages. It appeared in English in 1958 as On the Track of Unknown Animals, and that there is the cover of the 1995 edition. Now, Hoovermans was really heavily inspired by, and did often work with, the Scottish-American investigator, author, explorer, Ivan Terence Sanderson. Now, Sanderson was a really interesting guy. He was very experienced, very well-travelled, had a huge amount of hands-on experience with animals all around the world. He was a fantastic speaker. He was great fun at parties. He had this huge storehouse of amazing anecdotes. He was eminently clubbable, as they say. And unsurprisingly, he became quite a big TV star during the 1950s and 60s. There's no doubt that his expertise and experience as those living animals was considerable. He knew a lot about animals, their diversity, their behaviour and whatnot. But he was also really interested in mystery animals. Ivan Sanderson was basically the first person to write about such things as the abominable snowman, the Makina Mbembe of the Congo, various sea monsters, as if they were real animals. And many of the ideas that we have today about what these creatures are like are based on the ideas and the illustrations that Sanderson published. Sanderson was also interested more broadly in anomalous phenomena, and he wrote about UFOs, alien abductions, places where strange disappearances supposedly occurred, the Bermuda Triangle, that kind of stuff, mysterious underwater objects, giant Victorian ants, and again, many of the key concepts integral to those fields originated with Sanderson. So many of the ideas that today are mainstream in the ancient alien, paranormal and ufological literature originated with Sanderson. Now, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with any of that. I do believe you're allowed to be interested in whatever the hell you like, but the thing about Sanderson's writings on anomalous phenomena is that they basically show how credulous he was and how poor he was at evaluating data and conclusions. And there are various specific case studies that back up what I've said there. The most famous or infamous of which is the case of the Florida giant penguins, in which Sanderson fell hook, line and sinker for a really obvious and preposterous hoax. And there are numerous other examples of that kind of thing. Now, key to the philosophy of Hoovermans and Sanderson was the fact that new large animal species have been discovered within relatively recent decades. So they pointed to creatures like the okapi, named in 1901, and the Komodo dragon, named in 1914, as proof that new large animal species were surely out there to find. In a list that he published in a technical paper published in 1986, Hoovermans argued for the existence of 140 such creatures. Now, for claims like that to be taken seriously, you more or less have to accept at the outset that anecdotal testimony, in particular eyewitness testimony, is trustworthy, reliable, consistent. And the problem with that idea is there's a lot counting against it. Now, don't try reading the text on this slide. This slide shows just some of the more than 2,000 studies that have been done on people's ability to perform as data recallers. And the basic take-home message that you get from these studies is that people are unreliable when it comes to recording eyewitness information. They are untrustworthy, unreliable. If anybody ever told you they once saw something, don't believe them, basically. This is, of course, an overgeneralisation. This is especially the case when the encounters concerned are brief and stressful. Now, at this point, let's kind of summarise the stuff I've said so far. This is the kind of foundational background that you'll need to recall later in the talk. Cryptozoology contends that numerous creatures known only from anecdotal data might really exist. Cryptozoology was formulated and codified by the trained zoologist Bernard Hoovermans, with input from the rather more problematic Ivan Sanderson. Cryptozoology makes numerous bold claims about unrecognised animal species. It essentially says that biologists have missed a huge number of lineages, both living and fossil, and cryptozoology assumes that eyewitness testimony should be regarded as reliable, and that's a point of view that stands in contrast to at least some technical studies of the same subject. So with all of that as our kind of foundational background, let's look at some of the content of this new book, Hunting Monsters. There are sections in there on sea monsters, lake monsters, Bigfoot and other human-like monsters, the Makina Mbembe and other alleged so-called prehistoric survivors, and weird Australian creatures like the bunyip and the Queensland tiger. So we'll start with sea monsters. Now, of course, the idea that there might really be new species of large animals out there to find in the oceans, that's not a ridiculous idea. Many biologists would take this quite seriously. It's verified by the recent-ish discovery of various new whale and shark species. But the cryptozoological contention is that the various stories and eyewitness tales that describe fantastic giant sea monsters, the contention is that they also describe as yet unconfirmed real actual flesh and blood species. And there are a particular number of sightings that we have in mind whenever we discuss this. A number of sightings, a number of stories that describe these fantastic sea monster species endorsed by cryptozoologists. We're going to look at two of them in particular, two cases that are supposed to validate the cryptozoological contention that these sea monsters really exist. The first of them is the HMS Daedalus or Daedalus encounter of 1848. Now this occurred in the South Atlantic off the coast of Namibia. Whenever we talk about the case, we have this fantastic illustration from the Illustrated London News used, and this picture was drawn under the direction of the chief witness, Captain Peter Mackay. He described this giant, long-bodied, blunt-headed, dorsally dark creature, and it doesn't seem to match anything we know. Surely this shows that people have indeed seen creatures as yet unknown to science. However, immediately here we come to that issue of eyewitness reliability, because there's a second depiction of the same event, and this depiction wasn't produced under the direction of the witness, it was produced directly by the witness themselves. I'm talking about the Lieutenant Edgar Drummond illustration, here it is, and immediately you can see that the Daedalus monster wasn't some fantastic, awesome thing that clearly represents a species unknown to science. It was in fact something far vaguer and far more difficult to interpret. It's even been suggested at times that the object you're seeing here isn't an animal, maybe it's a piece of floating wood or something. Most recently, Gary Galbraith has argued that this is probably the projecting upper jaw of a sei whale that's engaging in a behaviour known as surface skimming. And I think that's a pretty compelling explanation. What about the second of these amazing classic sea monster accounts that can't be explained, supposedly? Here I'm thinking of the Valhalla incident of 1905. Again, we've got one of these lovely illustrations from the Illustrated London News. So again, this is from the Atlantic, this time it's off the coast of Brazil. From the deck of the research yacht the Valhalla, naturalists Michael Nicol and Edmund Mead Waldo, they observed this creature, and it had some kind of tall rubbery dorsal fin with supporting struts inside it. And again, general thinking is this can't be matched to anything that we know. Today we know that fur seals and sea lions will sometimes swim along with one of their fore paddles sticking up out of the water. This is called sailing. It's nothing to do with using the power of the wind, it's to do with temperature control. And I get immediately that these photos of a California sea lion are not a 100% match for the object in those illustrations. But there are enough similarities here for me to think this is a better, more simpler explanation than anything else offered so far. I think this likely does explain, in fact, what they saw. So once you get away from these classic encounters that supposedly describe observations of unknown species, but might actually describe things that we can explain if only we try hard enough, what other evidence is there supporting the existence of the sea monsters endorsed by cryptozoologists? Is there anything in the way of, say, photographic evidence? Well, there are a few photos. These are the best of them. These are the Hook Island sea monster photos of 1964, taken by Robert Lasterick while he was on holiday with his family and his friend Hank Lejean on Hook Island off the coast of Queensland, Australia. And they described encountering this gigantic, dark, 15-metre long tadpole-like monster taking refuge while resting in a lagoon. They reckoned that it was trying to recover after a collision with a ship, and that's why there's that white patch. They reckon it's a wound on the tail base. You can see the eyes in the photos also. Got these big white eyes on the top of the head. Now, these photos are great. Unfortunately, they almost certainly are hoaxes. Lasterick told people, before leaving France, where he lives, that he was going to go away and make a lot of money from a hoax involving a sea monster. Now, if you tell people that you're going to go away and make a lot of money from a hoax involving a sea monster, and you then go away and you make a lot of money from a hoax involving a sea monster, I think it's a pretty suspicious coincidence. Now, I said earlier that cryptozoologists have rationalised reports of mystery creatures. They have interpreted them within a zoological, biological, evolutionary flesh and blood framework. And exactly this has been done with sea monster reports. So during the 1950s, Bernard Hoovermans analysed hundreds of sea monster reports. He didn't actually collect them himself. He examined the archive compiled by a previous researcher, the Dutch biologist Anton Cornelius Oudemans. So here you have Hoovermans examining stuff in the Oudemans archive. Hoovermans was very good at looking deadly serious in photos. And what Hoovermans did is he scored the more than 350 reports on the basis of described behavioural, anatomical and geographical traits. On the basis of those traits, he then grouped them into sets. And he said how, to his surprise, they grouped into 9 distinct sets, representing 9 distinct sea monster species, which you can see depicted there in that illustration by my colleague Cameron McCormick. Now, for a while, it was thought that Hoovermans had actually done a good job, that he really had used logic and scientific thinking to extract a valid biological signal from the sea monster literature. Unfortunately, alas, later research, and here I'm thinking in particular of Ulrich Megan's study from 1996, later research has shown that Hoovermans cheated. If you look at the individual sea monster accounts themselves, they don't describe the key features they're meant to according to the categories to which Hoovermans assigned them. It's a bit more complicated than that. But what basically happened is that he came up with those 9 categories first and then assigned the different sea monster reports to the categories. And when he came up with these categories, he was heavily assisted by Ivan Sanderson. That's obvious from specific statements made in Hoovermans' writings. And other people who've looked at sea monster reports, they haven't found them to match the 9-fold Hoovermans scheme. There have been numerous different efforts to try and classify sea monster accounts. They've all come up with radically different, very strange ways of classifying them. In 1995, the late Ed Boosfield and the not late Paul LeBlanc, they examined sea monster reports from the Northeast Pacific. And they reckoned that these sightings validated the existence of a sea monster which they called Cadborosaurus. It's named after Cadboro Bay in British Columbia. And supposedly this is a horse-headed, sometimes horn-furry-bodied serpentine marine reptile descended from the fossil plesiosaurs of the Mesozoic. Now this is one of the most specific and detailed interpretations of a sea monster out there, and yet this is a creature that doesn't fit at all within the Hoovermans scheme. That's not to say that the existence of Cadborosaurus is more likely than anything in the Hoovermans scheme. Far from it. Boosford and LeBlanc pointed to 2 main pieces of supporting evidence as validating the existence of Cadborosaurus. First of all, they said that there was this carcass. Now, this was supposedly extracted from the stomach of a sperm whale during the 1930s. As you can see, it was photographed, but the carcass itself was lost. We have no idea what happened to it. And Boosford and LeBlanc say that this clearly represents some unknown giant vertebrate species. I think, in fact, we probably can work out what it is, if only we try hard enough. You will have to buy the book to see what I think it is. Annoyingly, I will just flash up one slide very briefly, and we move on. The second line of evidence supporting the existence of Cadborosaurus is, of course, the large body of eyewitness reports, which you can see depicted in this montage here. But if you look at the diversity and disparity in these reports, it seems obvious to me that we're not looking at people describing their encounters with a single unknown animal species. Instead, you've got people describing their encounters with all manner of different things. With encounters with elephant seals and giant fur seals and floating masses of wood, swimming deer, unusual wave and wake effects, and so on. Indeed, sea monster reports in general seem to combine this mix of kind of ideas and superstitions and beliefs about stuff in the ocean, together with people seeing all manner of things and misinterpreting, misunderstanding them. And by all manner of things, I mean, people are seeing weird whales and turtles and fish and seals and standing waves, loads of stuff. Now, there's tons more that could be said about sea monsters. There's a fairly hefty section on them in Hunting Monsters, but we have to move on. Let's look at their freshwater cousins, the lake monsters, and in particular I want to talk about everyone's favourite lake monster, and that is of course Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, which I have succeeded in photographing myself on a couple of occasions, as you can see there. Those of you who attended TetZooCon last year will remember Charles Paxton's excellent talk on the eyewitness evidence as it pertains to the Loch Ness Monster. I'm pleased to say Charles is in the audience today. 10 points if he's spotted. I'm not going to be talking about the eyewitness evidence, I'm going to talk instead about the photographic evidence. As many of you know, Nessie has been photographed quite a few times, What you won't know, unless you're some sad Nessie superfan, is that we know a huge amount about the background to every single one of these photos. We know a lot about the circumstances of photography, as in where the photos were taken and when they were taken. We know a lot about all the people behind the photos. There's a lot of biographical information out there now on all of them. And every single one of them is known now to be a hoax, a fake, or a mistake of some kind. So the so-called surgeon's photo of 1934, there's a compelling paper trail which demonstrates beyond doubt that was indeed a hoax. It is a toy submarine with a plastic monster head on the top, and it's actually controlled by wires, which you can even see in the photo. You can see the lines left in the water by the wires. The 1972 flipper photos, there are two of them. They don't depict flippers at all. What actually happened is that someone physically embellished the photos, literally painted on the photos to make that diamond shape. The original photos show the muddy floor at the bottom of the lock. There is an impression in the mud. It's thought to have been made by the metal rig attached to the camera that took the photo. My favourite Nessie photo, bottom left, the 1977 Muppet photo, taken by Irish stage magician and artist Tony Doc Shields. And there's a lot of reasons for thinking this is a plasticine model. Shields is associated with a whole load of monster hoaxes, and they've all turned out to be plasticine models. If you are impressively observant, you might be wondering what that white blob is at the base of the neck. You see the white blob? Well, Shields put forward two explanations for this. One is that it might be a floating can of Guinness. I mean, he is Irish. The second possibility is that maybe this is the eye of the giant freshwater proboscis-bearing elephant squid, Dinoteuthis, which he suggested in an article in 14 Times might be the actual explanation for the Loch Ness Monster. Although he did later imply that the giant freshwater proboscis-bearing elephant squid, Dinoteuthis, might actually be a ghost giant freshwater proboscis-bearing elephant squid, Dinoteuthis, and it's difficult to know which of those possibilities is the more likely, I guess. What about the Peter O'Connor photo of 1960, variously likened to a giant inflated plastic bag, a big loaf of bread, or most recently a taxidermed seal? Well, recent investigation by Loch Ness expert Dick Rayner has shown that O'Connor owned a particular kind of kayak called a time prefect. Flip it upside down, it looks like that. And that's not just the same model of kayak, that is the actual boat that O'Connor owned. In uncropped versions of the O'Connor photo, if you look at far left, you can see what looks like wooden planking and also the metal base for the rudder support. What about the 1933 Hugh Gray Nessie photo? This is the very first Nessie photo ever taken. It does not depict a Labrador swimming towards the camera with a stick in its mouth. That picture, I like the dog amused me a great deal last night. I am pretty certain, in fact, this actually is a double exposed image of a swan, although not a mute swan, as shown in the illustration I had done for hunting monsters. Instead, it seems to be a hooper swan, which is a far rarer animal at Loch Ness, and if you saw one, you probably would take a photo of it. We think he took the photographs and then afterwards, that looks a bit like a monster. Now, Loch Ness is not unique. There are hundreds of other lakes, particularly in the northern continents of the world, that are supposed to be home to Nessie-like monsters. But these creatures are really elusive, they're hardly ever photographed. And once you move away from Loch Ness, there's only really one good lake monster photo. It's this one. This is the Mansi photo of 1977, taken by Sandra Mansi at Lake Champlain. So that's on the borders of New York and Vermont. The original photo is in colour. This is normally taken to be a plesiosaur-like or sauropod-like animal. However, I'm one of several researchers, I've been saying this since 2001, I think this is an animal-like mass of wood, which is exhibiting animal-like behaviour, as it is turning and rotating, as it's being moved along in the very fast-flowing current that is present specifically at this particular part of the lake. And if you zoom into the photo, you can see various lumps and bumps around the object that kind of destroy that tidy animal-like shape. Decades of substantial effort involving underwater photography, sonar, submersible vehicles, lakeside visuals, they've all failed to produce the evidence that we should have by now that would support the existence of the lake monsters endorsed by cryptozoologists. But what's been noted by folklorists in particular, is that these stories and sightings describing giant predatory horse-headed lake monsters, they go hand in hand with a set of other ideas. So the lakes that are supposedly home to these creatures are also supposedly inhabited by gigantic, frightening fish. The lakes are said to be bottomless, they are said to be home to inexplicable whirlpools, and they're said to never give up their dead. And the fact that you've got these details that kind of go together, this suggests really quite strongly that there's a meme, there's kind of an idea that's travelled through culture that is attached to this lakes of this particular kind. And this meme appears to have changed over time, and it also has moved around the world with particular people. That's an assertion based on the fact that European-style lake monsters migrated to eastern North America, in particular Quebec, as described by Michel Merger in his 1988 book, Lake Monster Traditions. The rationalised efforts to interpret lake monsters as real has seen them interpreted most frequently as giant, long-necked seals or as modern-day highly modified plesiosaurs. But if you're going to support these ideas, you have to indulge in a colossal amount of cascading speculation. For example, if you want lake monsters to be living plesiosaurs, well then you have to come up with some explanation about the shape of the fossil record. You have to explain why there aren't good plesiosaur fossils that are known for the past 66 or million years. Then you have to explain why these modern-day lake monsters don't really look like plesiosaurs as we understand them from the fossil record. Then if you're going to do that, you have to explain various aspects of the natural history, the lifestyle, the ecology, and so on and so forth of these monsters. In short, you have to come up with an increasingly elaborate cascading sequence of speculations. It's very easy to scrutinise and criticise very heavily these kinds of arguments. This has been done in the cryptozoological literature quite a bit. And in view of this huge amount of speculation, cryptozoologists within recent years have increasingly turned to alternative explanations. Most popularly, that lake monsters are in fact gigantic eels or are misplaced whales catfishes. The problem with these ideas is that, there's the thinking that they're still nice and safe and based on flesh and blood animals instead of like a cultural interpretation, but they do still involve a huge amount of speculation. And they're still based on the idea that people surely must be describing encounters with animals. And the point is, they just may not be. We don't need a strict biological explanation at all for lake monsters, given that people are culturally primed to see lake monsters at these specific lakes. They exhibit what's known as expectant attention. You go to these lakes that have got that list of features I mentioned, and there's this idea that you'll see a thing, and that thing should be interpreted as a monster. People see all manner of things at these lakes, and they think of them as monsters. Now again, there is tons more that could be said about lake monsters, fascinating subject, but we'll move away from aquatic monsters and look at something entirely different. Let's look at anomalous primates or cryptohominids. I've got a good section, we've got a long section on them. I think it's good, you might, I don't know. A long section about them in hunting monsters. So Bigfoot, Yeti, Almas, Yowie, these various human-like creatures reported from around the world. Among the most popular components and areas of cryptozoological theorising. Some of you might recognise the inspiration for that particular image there, a certain TV series. Now in its, fifth season or something. And that's available on merchandise. So as you'll know, we have the huge hulking Yeti of the Himalaya. The Yeti is always dark, it's never white. We've got the Almas or Almasti of the Caucasus, the Yowie in Australia, of course Bigfoot or Bigfoot or Sasquatch in North America. But they really are just the tip of the iceberg. There are tens of other human-like cryptids that are reported both in folklore and stories and from eyewitness observations from across Africa, Central and South America, Asia, Australasia, Polynesia and Europe. In recent years, people claim to have observed Bigfoot-like creatures in Eastern Europe, Spain, Scotland, Wales and England. The fact that cryptohominids are so universal, so pervasive, I think is significant. Basically, wherever people go, they claim to see human-like monsters. And we'll come back to that point in a minute. Now, if we think just about the North American Bigfoot or Sasquatch, as you know, there are hundreds and hundreds of tracks attributed to this creature. I have to say, many of the tracks don't look at all like real animal tracks. That's an obvious problem with this phenomenon. But are any of them actually real? Are any of them really made by mystery animals? Now, we know for a fact that hoaxing is a huge problem in the Bigfoot field. For example, it's thought that the original Bigfoot tracks discovered at Bluff Creek, California in 1958, the original tracks, the tracks that led to the phenomenon having the name that it does, they were fakes. They were done to scare people away from a Californian construction site. And it isn't just miserable, boring old skeptics who say that these tracks are fakes. It's widely thought to be so among the most vocal proponents and supporters of Bigfoot. People like Lauren Coleman have said that these were fakes. The late Grover Krantz, looking rather angry in the picture at top right there, he was an anthropologist based at Washington State University who basically staked his career on the reality of Bigfoot. He said that there were a bunch of tracks that were gold standard tracks. He said that they exhibited a list of anatomical features that meant no way could they be faked. They absolutely were anatomically genuine, and there were a list of tiny little anatomical details, he said, which demonstrated their authenticity. Alas, those particular tracks were fakes. The person who faked them later came forward to say why he faked them. He did it to make Krantz look like an idiot, and how he faked them, and this person even listed the specific tiny anatomical details that Krantz had been so impressed with. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have any evidence pertaining to Bigfoot and other crypto hominids that is at all compelling. At this stage, there should be something that's convincing and it isn't anything. So if you want to be sceptical, if you want to analyse things properly, and you should want to be sceptical, you should want to analyse things properly, there's nothing out there at the moment that withstands appraisal, which is kind of sad. I wish Bigfoot were real, but there we go. Now, by far, the most famous piece of evidence pertaining to Bigfoot is, of course, the Patterson film, Patterson-Gimlin film, or PG film. If you've been paying attention to Twitter, you might have seen this trending on the Twitter moments thing, because this piece of film was supposedly taken 50 years ago yesterday. So yesterday, a large number of Bigfoot researchers and aficionados were at the film site, Bluff Creek, California, where in 1967 Roger Patterson filmed this 1 minute long piece of footage. And this is thought to be the most analysed piece of film after the Zapruder film showing the Kennedy assassination. It's widely regarded by Bigfoot supporters and aficionados as compelling, if not incontrovertible evidence of the creature's existence, and it's widely thought by skeptics to be a fat guy in a suit. Now, in recent years, it's become more and more obvious that the cameraman, Roger Patterson, he was really heavily influenced by the William Rowe incident of the late 1950s. Rowe's story comes from Canada. It supposedly occurred in 1955, but he didn't come forward with it until 1958, until after Bigfoot had become a cultural sensation due to those tracks discovered in Bluff Creek, California. And Rowe described observing an obviously female Bigfoot seen eating leaves in a clearing, and his daughter produced the illustration that you see at far left there. What I want you to know, in particular, is at top right, we have Roger Patterson's depiction of the William Rowe encounter, which Patterson produced in 1966. Now, Patterson did actually copy that illustration from an earlier illustration that accompanied an article by Ivan Sanderson, but that's a tangent. What do we see in this 1966 illustration? We see a man with a gun watching an obviously female Bigfoot striding across a clearing. Note that she's exhibiting a particular amount of exaggerated arm swing, and she is walking with bent knees, permanently bent knees. Now, underneath that, look at a frame from the Patterson footage itself, filmed in 1967, a year later. What do we have in this footage? We have an obviously female Bigfoot seen striding across a clearing, exhibiting a particularly exaggerated amount of arm swing, and walking with permanently bent knees. Roger Patterson is the cameraman, but at his side is his friend Bob Gimlin, who, he said, was keeping his gun trained on the creature in case it, rushed them and was a danger to them. The number of similarities between the 1966 drawing and a 1967 piece of footage, it's impressive. There's a lot of similarities there. This isn't my idea. John, myself and Memo Coaston did discuss it in our 2013 book, the Cryptozoology-themed, but various other people interested in Bigfoot have pointed out the same similarities also. Now, according to some people, and at the moment the most vocal of them is model maker, special effects artist Bill Mums, according to some people, the creature in the Patterson footage, who is these days affectionately known as Patty, what you see just can't be faked. There are nuances of muscle movement and light shining off the pelt and facial details and so on that just way exceed the technology and the materials available in 1967. But these claims are really questionable. They rely on the hyper-over-interpretation of the tiniest little details, which could just as plausibly be explained by factors of lighting and shade, even by artifacts on the film itself. We don't have the original film, we've only got copies of it. The film itself is 7.5 millimetres tall. The Patty figure on it, at most, is 1.6 millimetres tall. Out of that size, if you get little scratches or bits of dust on the film, bear in mind we're talking about copies of the original film, not the original, they can be interpreted as genuine anatomical structures. And in opposition to this point of view, that it must depict a real animal, we've now got this vast quantity of circumstantial data, most of it collected by Greg Long, and included in his really terribly written 2004 book, Making a Bigfoot. All this data on Roger Patterson himself, a huge amount of biographical information on this man. And it's clear from what's been written about him that Patterson, he was no bumbling amateur who just wandered into the woods one day and struck lucky. He was really quite skilled as an artist and craftsman. I should have said that drawing, the 1966 drawing, did you notice how good it was? He had a long-term interest in using Bigfoot as a way of making money. Loads of Bigfoot-related schemes were devised during his life, and he also spent most of his life basically engaged in various get-rich-quick schemes. Greg Long is quite mean about Patterson. He indulges in lots of character assassination, which I don't think is necessary, but it is obvious that Patterson was involved in all these things, none of which ever really panned out, and the only one that did, the only one that was a real success, we're still talking about today, was the Patterson film. Now, if there isn't a biological reality to these creatures, then why are stories and sightings of wild, human-shaped creatures so pervasive, so universal? Well, I think the answer is kind of similar to the one I gave a little earlier about lake monsters. The concept of the near-human, non-human is a widespread and probably ubiquitous component of human cultures. Everyone seems to have this idea of a creature that bridges the gap between humanity and the rest of nature. And human-like creatures are also a special case because we know, you will verify this yourself, we know that we are programmed to see the human face, the human shape in everything we look at. This is verified all the time by pareidolia. So I think it's these two things, this need for us to have a concept of a near-human, non-human that bridges the gap between us and the rest of nature, and our tendency to see human-like figures and faces everywhere. These two things explain the ubiquitous nature of human-like monsters across cultures. And again, what cryptozoologists have done is try to rationalise these concepts, to turn them into real flesh and blood creatures. There are numerous other mystery beasts discussed in Hunting Monsters. These illustrations depict the Makina Mbembe, this alleged surviving sauropod dinosaur of the Congo, the star of the well-known Walt Disney movie Baby, which no one apart from me ever seems to have seen. Thank you to us at least, Johan. These illustrations depict the Roper, a giant bioluminescent glow-in-the-dark cave-eating corpse-eating cave-dwelling nocturnal monster. which is supposed to inhabit New Guinea, and it, of course, is interpreted as a living pterosaur. Now, what's really obvious about these creatures, the Makina Mbembe supposed to be a sauropod, the rodent supposed to be a pterosaur, is they are, of course, really reflective of very old views on prehistoric animals. They are cultural anachronisms more than zoological ones. And what's also really notable about the writings on these creatures is that the people most interested in investigating them are creationists. For reasons that aren't quite clear, these people seem to think that if you find a living sauropod or a living pterosaur, then that will show that the theory of evolution by way of natural selection is invalid, and it will encourage religious belief, specifically Christian religious belief, and that it will make the world a better place. Well, I don't need to tell you, of course, that if you did find a living sauropod or pterosaur, what it would really mean is that those groups of animals survived somewhat longer than we otherwise thought, that they have survived to the present from an awful long time ago, just like all the other animals. And also problematic is the really terrible logic used in evaluating the eyewitness data concerned. This illustration at top left depicts another one of these Congolese water-dwelling monsters, the Mbilu, said to have planks sticking about at its back, and discussed on the basis of two accounts. Boy Mako, in his 1987 book Living Dinosaur, suggested Boy Mako, on the basis of those two accounts, to maybe be a living stegosaur. Now, I think it's somewhat odd to hear about a creature seen in tropical Africa and has planks sticking about its back, and immediately think living stegosaur. What about all the other things you should consider and eliminate first? What about the possibility that people might have seen a weird crocodile with unusually prominent dorsal scoots? What about the idea that people might have seen a lumpy, bumpy, gnarly piece of wood, like the one in the photo there? Or, if we are going to go down the route of thinking that people have indeed seen an animal unknown to science, what about the idea they saw, for example, a giant biker, this weird group of large, long-bodied African fishes? They are amphibious, they can walk on land, they have vertical finlets running along the top of the back. Now that's a really stupid and ridiculous idea, but the point is, it's less stupid and ridiculous than the idea that they might have seen, those two witnesses might actually have seen a living stegosaur. And on that note, I want you to imagine the world as it's apparently seen by some cryptozoological literalists. According to these people, the world is full of a huge number of as yet undiscovered large animal species. Remember, in 1986, Bernard Hoovermans is supporting the existence of 140 such creatures. Now, you've all heard about Bigfoot and living sauropods in the Congo and living pterosaurs and whatnot, but what about the mer beings, as endorsed by Lauren Coleman and Patrick Quee in their book The Field Guide to Bigfoot, Yeti and Other Mystery Primates Worldwide? I'm serious. What about, those of you who've attended TetZooCon in the past might recognise the next one, it's my favourite cryptid. What about Bighoots? Bighoots, the giant owl, the size of a human. It haunts the forest of eastern North America. It disguises itself in the daytime by looking like a giant piece of wood, as endorsed by the late cryptozoologist Mark Hall. Now, this flesh and blood literalist school of cryptozoology, initiated by Hoovermans and Sanderson, it requires the existence of this cascading pyramid of inferences, in which you accept to start with that eyewitness tales and accounts are valid. That's your bedrock, and you then build on top of it, coming up with an increasingly elaborate cascading series of speculations that allow you to come up with ideas on, for example, how your mystery creature fits into the evolutionary tree, how it fits into food webs, what its ecology is. In short, you are indulging in a colossal amount of unsupported speculation that doesn't have any data from elsewhere backing it up. Basically, you are left looking like a non-credible thinker. You're not working like someone who's supposed to be analysing things scientifically. Now, none of this totally eliminates the possibility that new large animal species really do await discovery. I can understand that what I've been saying in this talk seems quite negative, but it remains at least plausible that some of the creatures promoted by cryptozoologists might really exist. I really hope some of them do, but there is a more interesting story here, and it's one that really hasn't been discussed all that much. I've made it clear throughout the talk that I don't think cryptids do exist as real flesh and blood undiscovered animals, but they evidently still do exist as kind of psychological, non-corporeal entities. They are, as is demonstrated by the fact that they've proved pervasive, long-lasting, really resistant to efforts to debunk or destroy them. They seem to be an almost unshakable and deep-rooted part of our collective psyche, of our different cultures, and maybe even of the human condition itself. And if you take anything away from this talk, it's that point. It's that these monsters, these mystery creatures, are a really deeply embedded part, maybe, of what it actually is to be human. And I think that's a really interesting and significant claim. Thank you very much.
We're going to do the payout workshop next, but first we're going to do a quick book signing. So Darren will be signing Hunting Monsters, if you just get out the front.